thank you so much for joining me today on the Financial Planner Life podcast. How are you?
I'm really good, thanks. How are you, Sam?
Very well. I'm very good. Monday morning, it's been a bit mental. I've got to look after my daughter, 6-year-old. I didn't plan my Monday very well around it because it was very last minute that my wife was going away. So I kind of picked up my phone this morning, looked at my diary, and I was like, ooh. So it's a busy old day. So my daughter is currently sat outside the window doing some colouring like a good girl. But if you see me look away ever so slightly, it's because she's pulling faces through the window. More than likely, she's very playful.
Oh, bless her. Hopefully you've bribed her with some treats.
I'm going to wear her out because Monday is our PT day. So Here at Recruit UK, I've got a friend who runs a gym. So we do a HIIT session. So anybody who wants to do that, Lowry, for example, usually joins us. You know Lowry. Yeah. And we all go down and get very hot and sweaty doing a HIIT session. So I've said to her, and we're going to do it in the park today. So I've said to her, if you're a good girl, at 11 o'clock, you can come and show all the boys and girls how to do it.
Bless her. That's a really good way to wear her out. Great tactic.
Absolutely. Going to get her absolutely exhausted. Sara, like I said, thank you so much for joining me today. The Financial Planner Life podcast is all about the careers of those that work within the financial planning profession with an aim of attracting new people, sharing the realities, the ups and downs, what it's like to work in the profession, how to get into it, why you got into it. Your personal journey should inspire those thinking about joining, and even those that are in the profession already. You know, lots of listeners are power planners, administrators, financial advisors, employed, self-employed. And I get messages all the time thanking me for the guests that share their journey and their experiences because it teaches them. And I think that's what it's all about. It's been lacking in the financial planning profession over the years. And that's why I believe there is a shortage, because no one knows about it. We're going to talk a little bit about your journey, what you did before you got into the profession. You're quite new to it. As a female, why you chose the profession and what you believe might be the opportunities for you as a woman within financial planning. Talk about some of the things you're passionate about, such as financial education and why financial education is important to you. I think that's a really uplifting and enlightening part of the job of a financial planner. It's not just about, here's a product, let me make you some money, or here's a product, let me save you some money. There's a whole well-being side to understanding your finances, bringing out of the darkness and into the light your money beliefs and changing them, because it causes stress and it causes anxiety, doesn't it?
Absolutely.
It has done in my life anyway. Yeah. I can relate to that. Right. So, Sara, I always love to kick things off with understanding why you got into the financial planning and what were you doing beforehand. So tell us a little bit about your journey. How did you end up in the world of financial planning?
Okay, so probably not the most conventional route, I suppose. I previously worked in finance, but from a risk perspective. So I worked in one of the big four auditing firms. But again, not in an advice role, not in sort of a sales role or anything like that. And I feel like I sort of hit a wall with my career quite early on. I was around 26, 27, and I just felt a bit burnt out, a bit, looking for new challenges, and it kind of, everything I sort of come up against, it just didn't feel like enough, if that makes sense. And I'd always sort of had my eye on sort of financial planning and wealth management. And I know that's quite a strange thing to hear, like you said, because it's not known about. But I guess that goes back to sort of when I was younger. I very randomly just come across a company that in my hometown in Cardiff that were financial planners. I'd looked it up and I thought, that sounds cool. This was years and years ago. It wasn't that much of a flippant decision getting into it, but that was how I come across it. And it kind of always just stuck in the back of my mind and went from there really. So yeah, worked in an auditing firm, masses of opportunity, but I just didn't find the right opportunity for me really. So that's kind of how it sort of came about.
Let's pause there, because people listening to this podcast might well be considering a move, a change of career. They might be in an environment where they're earning a good salary, the security of a big pay package, benefits package, perhaps the backing of a large firm they're working with, different routes, different opportunities within it, but just don't feel fulfilled. They don't feel happy. Talk to us a little bit about that. What did it feel like to you? How could somebody identify with that feeling of, was it burnout? Was it lack of progress? Was it just a lack of interest in what you were doing and meaning and purpose? Tell us a little bit about what was the thoughts going through your head that thought, I'm not happy?
So it was a little bit of everything that you've actually touched upon, really. A little bit of burnout because, I I would say, everyone can say this, but I'd say I work quite hard, and if I really put my mind to something, I'm going to give it 110%, absolutely, give it my all. And I felt like I wasn't really getting the reward for it necessarily. And I appreciate, especially when you're starting out in your career, it's not going to happen overnight, is it? You're not going to get promoted to, I don't know, director. A career spans over a long period of time, but I just felt like I was forever hitting walls, and I did feel really burnt out. And I thought, I'm too young, blowing my own trumpet there, but too young to be feeling this in my career. It's too early on. Something's not right. And like you said, I wasn't being fulfilled in the role. It wasn't challenging enough. It wasn't technical enough for me. So jumping back slightly, I studied economics at university, and I felt like going into the auditing world or the corporate finance world would sort of fulfill that area of my sort of interests and my educational background, but it just didn't, and it wasn't matching up to it, and it just wasn't really enough for me at the time.
Did obviously we go to university. Yeah, well, I didn't, but we do. People go to university. You pick a course at 18 years old or whatever age it is when you go to uni. It's 18, isn't it? Yeah.
Gosh, so young.
Yeah, it is, isn't it? You pick this course, and this is the thing. You're young, you pick a course and you do it for 4 years, and you learn a hell of a lot during that period about the subject matter that you get stuck into. But as a person, you massively change.
Yeah.
You move out, you live on your own, you live with friends, you party, you open up your mind to different experiences, different environments. And by the end of that 4-year course, it might not be really what you thought it was that you wanted. It was just this selected path that you felt could be right. And then you think, well, I've got to use this now because I've spent all that money. I'm in all this debt. So therefore you pursue a career in the closest thing that relates to the education that you went down. Yeah. The degree that you went down. Yeah. And often I hear people just following that path and not realizing until later on that it's just not what they're about. It doesn't align with their core principles. It doesn't align with their core internal values. And we don't know that until you do it. You've got to do the job. You've got to go and have a look and see what it's all about, because without doing it, you don't know. And, we have to be grateful for what we learn within those positions in the years where we're doing something we don't want to know, because the beautiful experience you gain is that at least I know what I don't want to do, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
And that's what you can take from it. So you were a bit burnt out. You were thinking, this isn't for me. It wasn't aligning with your purpose. You'd done a little bit of a recce beforehand by the sounds of it, a little bit of research, and you picked up a firm so what was it then that stuck in the back of your mind? Because that's interesting to hear. What was it about financial planning when you did a little bit of a search? What was it that stuck in your mind and thought, well, that would be a great career. I'd be interested in that.
So again, probably a few different things. One is sort of the educational side of it. There's sort of two strings to that, I suppose, because there's that financial education and wellbeing where you can go out and actually deliver seminars or different things like that to individuals within firms or younger people that might benefit from it. But also you get to educate people through your job, through your day-to-day conversations with people, and helping them to sort of plan their futures and plan their finances and achieve the things that they actually want to set out and achieve in their lives. And you can do that through educating them in how to manage their money, or how to grow their money, or maybe how to not do things that they might currently be doing that may be detrimental to them. And as the financial planning world, it's a minefield. Pensions and all these different things, it's so complex. Even as advisors, there's things that we might not understand fully ourselves, and might have to kind of call in the experts, or so to say. And so your average person, your day-to-day person that maybe is not sort of in that industry, will really struggle with that, and it can really affect them and their mental health and well-being. It can really cause big problems in their life. And I just think if you can just build a relationship with someone and almost become their friend and help them with these things, then that's such a rewarding thing to me. Something that, like I said, I wasn't really getting that sort of rewarding element in my career previously. So
that feeling of helping others, that altruism, that thing that drives us, is the knowing that what I'm doing is having a positive effect on somebody else. And what I love about that is, pardon the pun when it comes to financial advice, is the compounding, like our money compounds, interest and markets going up, etc. So does the impact that your advice has on, say, a family, because it could, the education could pass down from generation to generation. The support that you offer could pass down from generation to generation. It could burden the levels of stress, worry, and anxiety for that individual, and therefore have a knock-on positive effect to the family environment as well. And I think the education piece is the bit that excites me the most about financial planning and financial advice. And I think the human behaviors side, the psychology side, why we do the things we do, why we think the way we think about money, and the impact it has on the decisions that we make. Yeah. And I think that's the bit that's really, really interesting, especially in this hyper consumerist world that we're in, where we're constantly bombarded with things that we should buy, things that we should have, all the things we should be. We should be successful. We should have loads of money. We should have that house. We should have this car. And all these things are the things that drive us into insanity, because let's face it, and the economy is showing that now, is that not everybody can't live up to the expectations of what social media or marketing or these companies expect us to have. We just can't live up to it, and it causes pressure, doesn't it? It causes worries, it causes stress. And I think from an education piece as well, it starts as young as it was my daughter's age, 5 years old, explaining the value of money, because she's just like, can you just get the guy to come and bring me a bit of food to the door, or can you press that button that brings the toy from me from the man who delivers the toys? And it's like, well, there is something called money involved in this, Isabella, and let me try and explain it to you. Do you get involved from an education? Brilliant. Education, educate your clients, get them involved. It's brilliant. You can work with them. And that's a wonderful reason why, becoming a financial advisor is such a great profession. What about educating people in schools and reaching out to children, like I just mentioned there? Do you get involved in that at all? Is that something that's part of your sort of altruistic approach to spreading the good word about good financial management?
Yeah, absolutely. That's something that's probably, I mentioned previously, part of my why, and something that I'm sort of really passionate about. Of course, it's not the most commercial decision necessarily, going into schools and teaching younger people. But again, it's part of that sort of, I feel anyway, my sort of duty, having this knowledge and having the ability to go out and advise and provide education, I think is something I'm really passionate about. Speaking from experience, I didn't have a Scooby-Doo when I was younger. I can't believe I'm going to admit this on a podcast, but I was really bad at maths, and it, as you say, it affected me so negatively. I didn't think that I was, going to have a very good job. I didn't think I was going to live up to these standards and be able to have a good career or have all these things like a nice house and a nice car that you're told you need to have to be successful. And that kind of fed into my sort of teenage years and probably my younger adult years as well. I remember very vividly having my GCSE teacher, and I'm not knocking my education at all, because I was very lucky to have the education that I did. But my GCSE maths teacher sat me and my dad down, and he said, "Oh, you're not going to pass. It is what it is, that's it." And I remember just thinking in that moment, like, what does that mean? I'm 16. I'm probably weeks away from taking my GCSEs. To me, that was my whole world. That was my whole universe at the time. But you have these things to focus on. It's such a big deal at the time, isn't it? And I remember thinking, oh, great, well, that's it. And you've just written me off for the rest of my life, and I'm not going to have a very good career. Luckily, I'm quite stubborn. So that's a good thing or a bad thing. And I managed to sort of switch that around and, get an economics degree and graduate and all of these things. And whilst that's not the be all and end all, I think that was probably my driver. It's being able to relate with people that maybe don't understand finance and don't understand, numbers and different things like that. I've been there, and I kind of, got the t-shirt, and I had those struggles myself. I was able to turn it around, and I want to be able to give that back and help other people that might be in that position as well.
Okay. Yeah. And I like that. That's a great story. And, maths, English, whatever, doesn't always come naturally to everybody.
No, not at all.
One of the things I love about the financial planning profession is you don't have to have an incredibly solid conventional educational background. I know financial advisors that left school at 16 years old, and now they're running firms and worth millions.
Yeah, exactly.
And it's one of those professions. And if anyone's listening to this, get the idea out of your head that you have to go to university and get a master's degree. You have to be an absolute mathematician. You have to know absolutely everything about the economics and everything like that. It's helpful.
Yeah.
It's helpful to be able to, pass your GCSEs and all of that, because it's going to help you pass your exams when you get into financial planning.
Yeah.
But it's not a necessity. And there are many people who don't have that background in education, don't have degrees. And it's one of the one professions that you can earn over £100,000 a year in without a degree.
Yeah.
And my advice to anybody is don't let that put you off. Have a reason why you want to do the job and make sure you're aligned to that. If it's to be of help and of service to others, perhaps throughout your life, you learned the hard way. What a wonderful lesson is to learn the hard way. Yeah. Therefore, you're educated in what can go wrong. So when it comes to sitting down with somebody who's struggling, it comes from a place of knowing, doesn't it? Absolutely. And I think from an education perspective, that's worth its weight in gold.
Yeah, I think one of the a really great skill, I would say, as an advisor is, it's being able to empathize with your clients, really being able to emotionally connect with them and understand, the struggles that they might be going through, or that they might have, or maybe are worried about in the future. And I think, like you said, you don't need a degree. It's a bit difficult saying that, obviously, because I've got one, but I was also the person that didn't have one at 20. I didn't go when I was 18, probably because of that whole mathematical incident or whatever. But I didn't go straight away. I took some time out and I thought, what am I doing? Where am I going with my life? What am I going to do? Kind of thing. I had to take time out to think about that. And I was also that person that didn't have the degree and was thinking, right, it's okay. So what's my next step? What am I going to do? I think I went and did, I went to university for my own personal reasons. I'm absolutely glad I did it. But like you said, you don't necessarily need it for the profession. So like you said, anyone out there thinking, oh, I can't do that because I don't have a degree, or I might not have been fantastic at maths in school, just try. Just have that conversation with, have a conversation with an advisor, reach out on LinkedIn or social media or something. I get people reaching out to me all the time. So I'll try to be quite active on social media and try and post relevant things. Yeah. I'm not always on the mark, but I do try and post things that I find educational or helpful to other people. And I often get prospective advisors or partners reaching out to me and saying, "Oh, how did you find it? What did you do? Tell me about your experience." And I think there's nothing more valuable than that, really. And I kind of wish I'd done that 3 years ago. And
I think you're right. And I think having anybody listening here, having the courage to reach out to somebody local to you and just asking, can I grab 15 minutes? Can I ask you a question? Am I able to book in a time to buy you a coffee just to pick your brain about what it is that you do for a living? I think you'll be very, very surprised how many people like yourself are kind enough to actually give some feedback and give some advice, because you were once in their situation, you were once in their position. And it's very, very difficult. I find it very hard to turn people away. I get lots of people come to me and say, Sam, how do I get in? What do I do? Yeah. And I'm going to start building like relevant content on YouTube so I can just direct it. And I'm doing that on my website at the moment, building relevant content as a educational piece where people can go listen to my videos, read some articles and get a good feel and a good understanding of what's required, but also what's the realities of getting in? How do I get in? What's the realities of salaries? How do I negotiate salaries up? Should I accept this? Should I go employed or self-employed? Just to kind of demystify some of the fears and the barriers and the worries that we put up about entering into a profession that actually, once you get into it, is relatively straightforward. It's just so different company from company. And you could take one path that might take you 5 years to get to your goal. You could take another path that might get you to your goal within a year and a half or 2 years. But I think one thing that's really needs to be clearly defined in the beginning for anybody that's thinking about entering into the profession and those in the profession is, where do you want to go? What's your goal? What's your long-term goal here? Is it, you're dead into the research side of it. You love the compliance. You love the nitty gritty. You love getting your red pen out and saying, no, that's wrong. That's right. Because you're driven perhaps by a need to protect consumers. Yeah. It might be that you're somebody that just is relationship driven. You've got a drive and a need to want to build relationships and you love that part of your job. Therefore, sitting down with a spreadsheet destroys your brain because you love talking to people and you love helping people. You love seeing the direct impact face to face, eye to eye with what you're actually doing within your job. Therefore, going down the financial planning route might be more interesting. It might be that you want a specialism where you're interested in clinical negligence or personal injury and you want to help people within those situations, pre and post court, settlements and all of that kind of stuff and what they do with their money. So then you might go down the clinical negligence and PI route. It might be investment management. It might be marketing. Those are the opportunities now that are opening up within financial planning. So there's so many of these different opportunities within the financial planning profession. But what people need to understand is where do I want to go? Where would I like to go? Where would I like to go? And sometimes a path you want to go down and you think you're on it, but actually it's like you're not going anywhere. You really aren't going. You've been sat in that administration role for 2.5 years, but you told me you want to be a financial advisor. And we're seeing that a lot. And I think what we need to do is bring to the surface the realities. You can get from A to B a lot quicker. Just reach out and take a look at some of our educational pieces, have a conversation with me. And sometimes these light bulb moments with people are fantastic. And they're like, oh, Jesus, I wish I spoke to you before. And it's like, well, you're welcome to, because there are options out there. And it's exactly the same with you guys. There's lots and lots of people within the profession that want to help the next generation come through and be a success and pick the right path and pass on their skills and pass on their knowledge of what worked for them and what didn't work, I think is more important as well. Yeah, which leads me on, you decided to come into the profession. Fantastic. Great to have you. Great to have a female within the financial planning profession. Distinct lack of females within the financial planning profession. And that's going to get better and better and better. A big word you mentioned, empathy. I think women tend to be more empathetic than men. Men are changing, I think. We are becoming more empathetic and more open, but women have a natural empathy that I've found. I've got 70% of my business are now women, actually. And I've noticed the natural levels of empathy. It's a different approach to how they look at their business and what they do. And so there is a difference between men and women and how we work within the work, in the workplace, but each have their skills and benefits and attributes that are important. I'm not going to bash men. I'm a man.
Don't bash them too much, but no, you're right though. Each sort of individual and each, men and women, they have their place in the profession, absolutely. But like you said, I think we need to do more to, one, as women, take the leap into the profession, because I think we're generally seen to maybe not take as many risks as maybe men do. And, it's not very common. I mean, I see it a lot more being in the profession, but it's not very common that you see females, I'm going to get shot for this, but, taking the leap of faith from a career and jumping into self-employed life or starting your own business. It absolutely does happen, but it's not necessarily shouted about as much as it might be with men. And I think as women, we need to encourage other women to do that as well, and really build up a really strong female powerhouse of financial advisors.
I think so. And I think what we're seeing more of, and especially within the financial planning profession, which I believe is in a startup phase, it is at that, it's a very exciting point where people can now come on in and run their own business, use marketing, use social media, be responsible for those things and have a really strong outreach and build a really strong personal brand. And what I've seen is a lot of women taking to social media far greater than men. Embracing the likes of TikTok or, the influencer stance, using it within as a string to their bow when it comes to their marketing. And it works really well. Chantal Patterson, who was on my podcast, her Money Talks, I can't remember the name of her podcast, she's doing it absolutely perfectly. Doing it really, really well. And there's loads of women doing the same. So yeah, you obviously mentioned there about the perception of financial planning, perhaps financial services. Did you think it was before you got into it, did you think it was a very male dominated profession? Did it look that way to you as a female on the outside looking in?
Absolutely. It looked that way to me. And I remember the first time, first meeting that I was having with a selection manager that was recruiting me in. I was walking over to this meeting, and I live in the city centre in Cardiff, and I was walking over to their head office. And I was so nervous. I remember thinking, what am I doing? Why am I going? I almost turned around so many times. I thought, you're not going to fit in there. It's male dominated. It's really corporate. I really had that perception. And within minutes, they completely changed my perception of that. And it wasn't like that. But I think from the outside in, it does still sort of seem that way. And again, I think we've got a lot of work to do to kind of change the perception and sort of remove those barriers that it's a male dominated industry. But I mean, it was previously, wasn't it, back in the day, and it probably did have a bit of a negative perception of the industry from the outside in. So I think, again, that's something, there's lots of work to be done. We're trying to change the narrative and trying to show that women can be really good financial advisors and financial planners, and it's not a male driven industry. it might previously have been that way, but it's not necessarily that way now. We have to change that, I think.
Let's look at some of the statistics, okay? Because half of married women with a business-related degree out-earn their husbands, whilst 80% of women will be solely responsible for their household finances at some point. So 80% of women. Women will also inherit 70% of the wealth passed down over the next 2 generations, which means they'll control 2/3 of household wealth by 2030. So about 53% of UK millionaires will be female by 2025. And when it comes to financial advice careers, up to 70% of women who work with financial advisors prefer female advisors. 34% of financial advisors believe their firm should employ more female advisors. However, despite all this, current estimates suggest that female financial advisors account for just 15%. This was when I wrote this article last time, so I think it's maybe gone up, of the total advisor population. So you can see there's a direct need. So any women listening to this, any firms that are, trying to hire, get some women in there, because there's a huge opportunity out there to generate funds under management, which is what you guys got to do, at the end of the day. Yeah. And there's a great need for women to receive the financial advice that, by the sounds of it, has been lacking over the years, and they prefer to have female advisors. And there's loads of great situations where women become very, look at divorces. Why would a woman want to sit down with a man if they're getting divorced?
Yeah.
Like I would find that uncomfortable. I would try not to find it uncomfortable, but I think a female wants to speak to a female in that situation. Would you agree, or am I being a bit?
No, I think you're right, because again, it's probably that empathy side. Thankfully, I've not been through a divorce, but it's being able to empathize and being able to relate to that person from an understanding. And whilst we try and do that with, people from all walks of life, I think there's nothing more, powerful than having someone that might understand and might be able to relate to you. And also, I think there's a perception, people don't know that they necessarily need an advisor, or they can have an advisor. If I got paid £1 for every time somebody said to me, I don't have enough money, or I'm not rich enough to have a financial advisor or a financial planner, I could probably retire. But but everybody says it. And I'm like, there's so much more to having a financial planner than what meets the eye. You can accumulate wealth over the years and things like that. And when it comes to divorce, for example, people don't necessarily realize that the value of having a financial advisor in that situation, someone that's on your side, is someone that's trying to help you and make sure that you have the best outcome for you going forward, because they can be really crippling at divorces. And you've got the emotional side of it. You've got everything changing, and from the perspective that, your life might be changing, your family dynamics might be changing in a way that you never thought would happen. And then you've got these extra money worries and pressures that you absolutely just don't need at that time. So, having someone there to be able to relate to, empathize with, and fight your corner is really valuable.
How often, when you're in a client meeting, do you discover and uncover an emotional sort of scar, perhaps, that's shaped their view of money and their belief around money, as in they haven't got enough, or they want more, or they've, whatever the belief is that might be having a detrimental negative effect to their money management? How often do you discover that? And when you do discover it, does it sometimes become a revelation for them, and they're like, wow, I never thought about it that way?
I'd say, probably the majority of meetings that you have with people, you sort of uncover, it's all about uncovering that, emotional attachment, isn't it, to certain aspects within their finances or within their life. And like you said, they do have that revelation moment. I've had many a situation where, you can really put into perspective. They might have this goal, for example, that they absolutely have to achieve in their life in the next 10, 15 years. But when you actually sit down in front of someone and say, right, so how are you going to get there? And how would you feel if you were not, you weren't able to achieve that goal? And they don't really think about it necessarily, or they might not think they've got an emotional attachment to it until they have that conversation with you. So I say it happens all the time. And that's probably, again, another really good skill I would suggest that, I say skill, or something you work on being able to uncover those emotional attachments with your clients and those relationships that you're building, because you're going to get more, I don't want to say buy-in, but you're going to get more of a, buy-in. You're going to get more of that. Yeah, a connection. You're going to get more of a connection with them and make them understand a little bit more and educate them a little bit more if you're able to uncover those emotional connections.
Sara, do you think it's important that somebody that becomes a financial advisor picks up the mirror and looks at themselves and is able to self-reflect and self-improve? Do you think that's a prerequisite of being a good financial planner, is to kind of get outside of your own head, if you like, look at the things that you do well, but also need improving and make those self-improvements? Do you think that's a prerequisite? Is something every financial advisor should be doing, is looking at themselves?
Absolutely. I think so. And I think, coming from an employed background, like you said, I had a career, had a great, a salary, and everything was sort of great in that sense. But whilst I wasn't getting the fulfillment, I really had to change my mindset. And I had that sort of, the classic imposter syndrome. Can I really do this? Am I good enough to sit in front of people and tell them how they should manage their money, or tell them what they should be doing to improve their financial well-being? And I went through that myself. I really sat down and went through some really tough, had some tough conversations with myself. I almost went back on it a million times, and thought, oh, maybe it's not the right move going into this career. I've had all of that. And I think you continue to do that as well. We always evolve as individuals and we always change. I might not be the same person in 10 years. I might be very different, I think it is important to look back and reflect regularly and say, am I doing the right thing? Am I being genuine?
How do you manage that then? How do you check to see if you're on the right path and that you're coming from the right place and that you are looking after yourself in that respect?
I think reflecting on, I like to try and reflect on sort of on a weekly basis or a monthly basis. Who have I been, what conversations have I been having with people? Who am I talking to? What have I been doing this week that's really helping people, or am I doing good? And then it's not necessarily just about sitting in front of the client, but what am I doing as well to better myself as an individual or as a self-employed person trying to grow a business? Just generally trying to reflect and making sure that I'm staying true to myself as well whilst I'm out there trying to build a business.
Fantastic. Well, let's talk about that. You mentioned about being self-employed. Okay. So you've progressed, you've sat in a career that you weren't really that happy. You weren't fulfilled. And you pursued a career within financial planning. So you're what's classed as really a second careerist, right? But quite early on, second careerist. And that's what we're trying to attract to the profession, are these second careerists. Now, a lot of the entry opportunities, especially into directly financial advice, will result in being self-employed. Now, there are massive benefits to being self-employed. It's your business. You can run it as you want. You can accumulate assets under management, which at some point you are able to exit the profession and actually have value upon the clients that you've accumulated and have an exit value on sellout. Some firms out there paying 7 times recurring income, crazy figures, 100 grand of recurring income, you walk away with 700 grand, best case. So it's a great way to go into the profession. You're building, it's your business, it's your brand, it's who you are, you're self-motivating yourself, etc. But also at the same time, Sara, that would scare the living daylights out of lots of people, like, wow, what a risky move, people would be saying, well, how do you know that you're going to be a success? Why choose self-employed? So my question to you is, okay, let's look at that. You're in your past role, you moved across now into financial planning. You've been doing it now for nearly 2 years. Yeah, about 2 years. Tell us a little bit about why you chose self-employed as the route for you and how.
So at the time, I don't really know how it happened. I don't know how it happened. I kind of didn't explore many other options. For me, this was just the route that I was going down. And I remember thinking, right, okay, this is happening. And have these conversations with myself. And it's obviously not as plain sailing as that, but I always had this ambition as well as, wanting to go into financial planning, that I wanted to be a business owner. I wanted to run my own business whilst, become self-employed in some capacity, but I never really knew what that looked like. And until I started exploring financial planning in more depth, I didn't realize that I could kind of marry the two together. whether that was a lack of awareness from myself or, you know, a lack of sort of advertising, I guess, or shouting out about the industry as a whole, I'm not sure. But yeah, it just kind of, that was the route that I started going down. And I thought, well, you know what? I was 27, 28 at the time. I thought, great, I've got this opportunity to go into financial planning and really build a career that I want and shape it in the way that I want, with all this support of, you know, the firm behind me. And I get to be self-employed, which is something that I've wanted to do as well. Let's do it. I'm not going to pretend that it was like that just happened overnight and it was that decision. You know, it took a lot to really make that final call and say, yes, this is what I'm doing, and, you know, really change my mindset and convince myself that I could do it. But that was pretty much it. I didn't know that there was all these other opportunities. And I also probably come from that generation that kind of have this perception that you have to have everything and you have to have it now. And I just thought, do I want to spend another 5-6 years going back and starting in a, you know, an admin role? Not that there's anything wrong with that, but it just, I'd already progressed to a certain point in my career. And I thought, I don't want to take, you know, 5 steps back and start at the bottom again from that perspective. Whilst I am starting again, essentially a second careerist, I just thought I need to give it everything. I know I'm capable of doing it, and let's go, essentially.
Absolutely. So you took that brave step. And I think one of the things that, which we haven't touched on yet, is that you went down through the St. James's Place Academy. And the one thing St. James's, you said a minute ago, I didn't quite know how I ended up. I'll tell you how you ended up, because St. James's Place are incredibly good at selling the dream and also the roadmap. I think we all need a roadmap. You didn't know about the roadmap. They've got a tried and tested roadmap. They'll wheel out people that have gone down the roadmap and been success. So you're seeing the testimonials, you're seeing that it works. And it's their sort of ability to position you based on your personal attitude to risk, your willingness to be self-employed and work for yourself. They're looking at that, aren't they? And they're thinking, has this person got what it takes to do it? Because I'm pretty damn sure they wouldn't have just said, oh yeah, here you go, off you go, be self-employed. I suspect they sat you down, quizzed you, asked you questions, perhaps got you to write a business plan, to think about where you could get clients from. What would you do if it was all down to you and there was no leads being passed to you, et cetera, et cetera. Did they do that? Did you have an exploratory chat? Did you inventory what a small business plan, for example?
Yeah, absolutely. You hit the mark there, really. Whilst they can very much sell you the dream, and they tell you, oh, these are all the great things that you could have, they also tell you the harsh realities of it as well. And, being self-employed or being a business owner, it comes with its challenges, especially, on the back end of a pandemic and potentially a recession where we may be heading into. They very much make you aware of all the struggles that you will face, and they do test you and they push you to your limits throughout that process. For me, it was a little bit of a longer process because of the pandemic. So I started my journey just in the Feb 2020. And then obviously it got paused a little bit because of, the pandemic. Obviously everything happened and nobody really knew what was going on or what to do or what the next steps were. So took a little breather and just said, right, we need to reassess the situation and we'll come back to it. But absolutely, you go through such interesting tests in lots of different ways. They test your business plan, they test, your network, and who do you know, and how do you engage with your network, and what would you do, like you said, if you have no leads coming in? Where are you going to look to find leads? What are you going to do to build your business? Because at the end of the day, yes, it's fantastic. You have this really big powerhouse behind you, but you have to put the work in to build your business, otherwise it won't work. So yeah, they really do. And there's another thing that I found really interesting as well, is you do these things that are called soundings. I don't know if it's the same now, but go out to people in your network, so people that you're close to, or people that you work with, professional connections and things like that. And you just say, I'm thinking of going out into this career. What do you think? And it's great because they're brutally honest with you. And a lot of people said, why are you doing that? I've no sort of reasons to think that you wouldn't be able to do it, but why? That sounds crazy. Like you said, it sounds bonkers. You just go from, you've got a career and you're just going to leave and start a business or become self-employed. And it can seem a little bit crazy to people from the outside, but I think if you've got that desire to do so, and if you're thinking about it all the time, I know I was, especially once I started getting my teeth into it and thinking, actually, this could be reality for me. That is a bit of a driver as well to kind of push you along. But just talk to people, talk to your friends, the people closest to you, and say, what do you think about this? Will you support me? What support have you got around you to help you in those tough times, and help you, build your own career?
One of the things, I love it. Yeah, absolutely. Did you get to a point where you said one of the things there, and one of the biggest things I've learned in my life is switching off this limiting beliefs, this inner voice that says, self-sabotaging inner voice telling me I can't do it. I shouldn't do it. I'm going to fail. What do they think? What do they think? Et cetera, et cetera. And as soon as I can shut that voice up and I focus on the goal, I focus on my vision, and I'm very good at visualizing things. A lot of the things that I visualize have come true, right? And the more I think about it, the more I believe it, the more I live it in my mind, the more I manifest it, the more it comes to me, this abundance. And I believe that abundance mindset is true. Laws of attraction. I believe in that wholeheartedly. I believe in the power of neuroplasticity. If you think it over and over and over again, you become it. You retrain your brain, and if you believe it and you think it and you believe it, then it's going to happen. I believe that. It's happened to me numerous. I've changed the way my brain works. It's an ongoing process, and I absolutely love it. Did there come a point where you just went, do you know what? Fuck it. I believe this 100%. I am going to be a success. Did you subscribe to that in your mind, or are you still, in the background, someone clawing at you saying, you're making a mistake in the back of your mind, or are you now 100% two-footed into it?
I say I'm 100% two-footed in, but I very much would say I've had a similar experience. So it's not that I never believed in, manifestation or law of attraction or anything like that, but I just never did it.
Yeah.
And then when I kind of had this perception, I wanted to be a financial planner. I wanted to be self-employed. I wanted to one day, be a successful business owner, but I just never saw it. I don't know if I actually believed that it would happen. And then it really came to a point where I thought, if you don't change your mind and you don't believe in yourself, it's not going to happen, and we'll just leave it here. And then you can carry on being, unhappy and unfulfilled in your job. And I did get into some really sort of low places and dark places where I convinced myself it wasn't going to happen. It was going to be a complete failure, and I wasn't capable, and I wasn't going to be able to do it. And I remember sitting there and talking to one of my really good friends, and she just said to me, she was like, look, worst case scenario in this situation is you become a qualified financial planner. That is the worst case scenario. And I remember that conversation, I just thought, there we are. That is it. And I don't know why, but I got myself into such a pickle, and I was so stressed out. I thought, I'm not capable. But and all these people around me were believing in me. SJP were believing in me, and they loved my business plan. They loved everything that I was telling them. And then I somehow stopped believing it myself.
Yeah,
it was like I'd built myself up to this moment, and it was all coming together. And I just thought, no, I can't do that. And I very nearly shied away from it, because I just, it's a big deal to.
Sometimes we have to take ourselves to that place.
Yeah.
I think, and I'm being a business owner myself. I got, I'm growing this business. There's 22 people in there. I'm also set up the Financial Planner Life. I've got great big aspirations for the Financial Planner Life of what I want to do with it, and they're big goals, And I got myself into a right pickle over the years, stressing my nut out and. And worrying what people think and all that kind of stuff. But sometimes we win and sometimes we learn, and sometimes those dark moments come off the back of failures, but they're not failures, they're just learnings. Yeah. And I think you have to take yourself to a place of darkness sometimes to bring it out into the light. And usually it's a little voice. It's this limiting belief. It's this, this trauma perhaps we experienced at some point in our life where we thought that we weren't good enough. And we look at it, and we change the voice, we change the tone. We start to speak a bit kinder to ourselves and give ourselves a little bit of enthusiasm, belief, and we just change it. And I think once you connect with that and you realize, okay, well, why are you saying that? Why in my head are you saying that? And then once you start to look at it and pick it apart a little bit, you're like, oh, that's why. Well, guess what? Thank you for your concern and my, the worry for my security. I get that. But what have I got to lose? I believe in myself, so I'm going to do it. And then once you build that relationship with yourself, it becomes a far more constructive, kinder, nicer life, because, you've got a nice relationship internally with yourself, haven't you?
Yeah, and you've got to be kind to yourself as well. We as humans, we give so much to other people, and we're always looking out for other people. We sometimes forget about ourselves, don't we? And
always.
I'll be the first person to champion my friends and people in my professional network and how well they're doing in their careers. And then it's so easy to forget about yourself. And like you said, I do think you have to take yourself there, because if I didn't maybe take myself to that point where I thought I was going to throw the towel in and not go ahead with it, maybe I would be a bit, I don't know, maybe I'd be a bit arrogant, or maybe I'd be, floating on this self-belief that I could achieve anything. And yes, you can if you put your mind to it, but you have to I think it is good to see both sides,
It's good to be humbled as well.
Yeah, absolutely.
Good to be taken to your knees every now and then.
Yeah. And but the thing is, in reality, it still happens. I still get imposter syndrome now. I still worry, am I giving the right level of service? Am I doing enough? You're always going to have that. It doesn't ever go away. I think it's about your mindset and how you manage it. And I think having that experience, probably we were in the middle of a pandemic as well, which didn't help at all. I was at home, isolated, away from pretty much all my friends and my work colleagues. And I'm one of those people that I thrive in an environment around other people. I bounce off other people. So I struggled with Zoom and Teams and all these things and being isolated. So again, it was such a journey on my own. I really discovered a lot about myself and about my drivers and when I needed to press pause and when I needed to reach out and talk to other people and take guidance from other people.
Brilliant.
So yeah.
Yeah, that's it. We build these, as you said, we start to learn mind management. We have 60,000 thoughts a day that come into our head. Most of them are mainly like worrying about missing, not getting something or having something taken away, chasing pleasure or avoiding pain. So it's like we just have these crazy things that are just survival instincts that come into our head. The problem is we've got so much stuff around us that confuses us. We attach it to things, don't we? We attach these thoughts to things and, that will solve my problem. That will solve my problem. Whereas most of the time it's just a distorted, lie. So you look at it and it's about managing that distortion when it comes into your head, learning from it. Well, why is it there? Where's the evidence to suggest what I'm thinking about myself or my business or my future, which I got no crystal ball, is actually real? Give me some evidence. That's what I do to myself. Go on and give me some evidence. And then if I can generate some really good quality evidence, I might look at it a little bit further. But if not, I dismiss it and I carry on in my path and my belief and my trust that it's going to work. And that's something you should just stick with within that self-employed. Something I can pass on 15 years of doing it is just believe constantly that it's going to work, because it will. It will if you believe it, because you'll attract abundance, good things. One of the things that so you've gone through St. James's Place Academy, okay? We're going to fast forward a little bit because now you've gone through that stage. You've done all your learnings through the academy. I've done other podcasts around that. People can pick up on that. Now you've gone then into a practice, okay? You've gone down the self-employed route. You're now working as a qualified financial advisor, done your level 4 qualifications, yeah?
Yeah.
You're now working as a financial advisor. You're working for a firm in Cardiff?
So it's just outside Cardiff, near Swansea. I'm based in Cardiff and we cover South Wales. And
you're working there as a registered individual, self-employed, underneath a partner practice of St. James's Place, where you go out and see your own clients. That partner practice offer you support, guidance, and mentorship. One of those individuals who are a director is a female as well. Now, there aren't many female directors within financial planning practices. So how have you found that, having somebody at the helm who's a female?
I just think as a female, it's really just invaluable. Jumping back slightly, in working in the corporate world, I was surrounded by males, and not that there's anything wrong with that, but I was always, quite often the only woman in the room, or I was quite often the only woman at the table. And there was situations where I felt inferior, stupidly, because there was no reason to sort of feel that way or think that way. But there has been, had that vulnerability. So, and I'd never had a female leader. I remember the first time I actually met Danny, my director, and I thought, I've never actually had a female manager. or somebody in a leadership position. So to be in a position where I can, essentially be taken under someone's wing who's been there and got 10 t-shirts. She's been advising for 26 odd years, she's seen it all, and then she's seen it again. And I just think, and she often says, I want you to learn from me, but I also want you to learn what not to do from me. She said, I wish I had someone like me when I was your age, or when I was coming into the career myself and into the industry myself. And I just think it's so invaluable. And again, she kind of just gets me. It's such a weird relationship. She just knows me so well. And I don't know whether that's a skill as a really skilled financial planner, or just her as a person, but you can just learn so much from other females and males. But I think coming into the profession as a self-employed advisor, it's a scary world. It's a big leap. So to have a female sort of champion, someone that's got your back, and she's there if I need her, it's really, really sort of second to none.
I think it's inspiring. It inspires you as a female to shows you that women can get into directorship roles, run businesses within what is perceived as a male profession. It is changing. What I also like about it, and you've touched on that, is the mentorship side. That she can relate to you differently. Absolutely. It's why I've got 3 women within my business that are all managers. Women relate to other women differently. It's harder for a man, and I try my best. I really, really do, but I'm not a female. And I can do the best I can. I got a daughter, I'm doing the best I can. And I've had to change my mindset as a male to be more understanding and empathetic to the needs of a female. And I think having a good, strong mentor within the profession and within your company shows you that you can do it. And one of the things you said there, it's like she really knows you. Do you know why that is, right? And this is the same male, female, whatever. It's because you've got a willingness to learn.
Yeah.
And one of the things I would say to anybody getting into this profession, into any profession, especially when it comes down to being self-employed, don't look for the problems all the time. Don't look for, I'm not getting this or I'm not getting that. Just have a willingness and a keenness to learn, a willingness and a keenness to fail and learn from it, to not be fearful and to be honest and to look for the positives. Because when someone's running a business, they're busy. Yeah. And they've got so many other plates to spin. They also understand the most valuable people within their businesses are you. It's you. There's only a finite amount of energy that we have as directors, as business owners, and we want to direct it in a way to the people that don't take it. We want to direct it to the people that use it and then give it back. Absolutely. I've got some amazing people in my office, like 2 girls that I work with who have brought into the Financial Planner Life, Charlie and Elena. I just love their energy. Because when we sit down and we talk, it's passed back to me. Yeah, it goes around and it's wonderful. And I think anybody listening, female, male, whatever, if you have a mentor within your business, and especially if they're a leader, they have got so much to give you. Make sure you give it back. Absolutely. Don't take people's energy, replace it, and you'll get it back tenfold. People want to feel, looked after, and it works the other way around. And if you can empathize and understand what's going through her head and the pressures that she's under as well, and that she needs good people around her, then it works really, really well. But not all managers are great. Not all directors are great. Some of them are absolutely terrible. I learned the hard way with myself. There was periods in my life where I was not very good. But I've learned that I'm a lot better now. And also I bring people in who are better than me at that. That's a skill, see. But that's, I think, again, like you said, it's being able to recognize that maybe you didn't do great at something, or that wasn't a great decision that you've made, and what do you learn from it? If we have that arrogance about ourselves that everything's fine and dandy and we're always making the right decisions, we're never going to grow and you're going to hit a lot of walls. So I think it's being able to, like you said earlier on, it's being able to reflect and make sure that we'll think, maybe that wasn't a great decision. What can I do better? Or who can I bring in that's able to make those decisions in a way that I wouldn't be able to, and put the right people in the right places. Fantastic. So you've gone through an academy, you've got yourself up and running, you've got your qualifications. Fair play off the back of a pandemic and going into a recession. You picked your time.
Sounds like me.
Yeah, well, that's exactly what happened to me. The first credit crunch. That's when I got into recruitment, and then there's a recession and all sorts of stuff. So these things are sent to test us, and they're never as bad as you think. And it can only get better, is my view on that. And
good to know.
In down times, we make money.
Yeah.
In down times, we become successes. If you dwell and wallow in the pity, you don't get anywhere. So you're in it's all about mindset again, isn't it? That mindset shift. Let's finish on. What do you think the future looks like for you? What do you think the next year is going to look like? What's your biggest sort of, what are you enthused about over the next year?
Just really, like I said, building relationships with people, meaningful relationships. One thing I hear from so many other advisors out there is that they wish that they were a bit more precious about their relationships early on. And, you're not going to be suited to everybody. You're not going to be able to help everybody, but there is somebody out there for everyone. That might not be you. And I think it's being able to recognize that early on might save you a lot of headaches, and your relationships with your clients, a lot of headaches down the road. So yeah, I really just, I want to build a good business within a business, and build meaningful relationships and really get out there and help educate people, especially with all this uncertainty at the moment. There's a lot of worries about what the next year, 2-3 years is going to look like. And I think if I can sort of help one or two individuals, now and then seek a bit of peace or a bit of clarity on what that will look like, then I feel like I will have done my job.
I like it. I think that's aligning your job and your role as a financial planner with your core beliefs and purpose in life. And I think, that's what it's about. That's the sign of a long-lasting, happy and content career, isn't it?
Yeah, absolutely.
And let's not, now you're in the profession, you've made that change, right? You've got into the profession, you're in there. Is there an abundance of opportunity out there for you as a financial planner? Do you see it as a really fulfilling and financially, let's look at your own personal finances. Do you see it as something that's fulfilling you internally in respect of a job role, but is also going to bring good levels of income your way and quality of life?
Yeah, I do. And again, it goes back to that sort of self-belief for one, but also there is so much opportunity out there and to help people and educate people. And I think I go back to the education thing, but that's where people start to understand, oh, maybe it is a valuable thing to have an advisor. I do think it, I'm very much bought in. I think it will definitely pay off. It might not happen overnight. There are going to be ups and downs, but you will find that with every career, and you'll find that with every entrepreneur or self-employed or business owner, you're always going to hit bumps in the road. And I think it's being adaptable and understanding that that's going to happen, and it's not going to be plain sailing all the time, because that would be perfect, wouldn't it? But it's not going to be like that. And that's the reality of it. But, I'm very much, this is me now. I'm very comfortable with where I'm going in the future. And I'm very much building for the long term. But I'd say to anyone out there as well, listening to that, and it's okay to change as well. You might go into the profession, whether that's in an employed role, an admin role, like you said, all the different options. Try it out.
Yeah.
If it's not for you, it's not for you. Or if you think, oh, actually, I really like it, but I want to explore this a little bit more. I had this perception that I had to do it now. I had to do it before I was 30, and otherwise I was going to be too old, which is ridiculous. But just, your career lasts a very long time. So there's nothing wrong with sort of pivoting or changing your routes at any point along the way.
I think you're absolutely spot on. Yeah. I'm into my 40s now, and it's the best I've ever felt, the best place I've ever been. And being 40 to me isn't like, oh God, I'm middle-aged. I'm so positive about my future. I'm positive about getting older and the opportunities that brings me in the world. And you're right. Don't think it's too late. Don't think it's too soon. Chill out.
Yeah, just breathe.
Yeah, it's all right. Just go and add some value, because all you've got is the present day. Get stuck in. Otherwise, you're going to live a life full of regrets, and that's an unhealthy and unhappy life.
Absolutely.
Brilliant. Sarah, it's been an absolute pleasure talking to you, genuinely. Thank you. Just exactly what I need on a Monday morning before I hit my PT sesh.
Well, good luck.
Thank you. I really value your time. I really appreciate it. And I think our listeners will as well. So thank you so much for sharing your journey. Do keep in contact with me. And this will be released probably next week. Okay. So look out for that one, listeners. And any questions or anything, fire them my way. Or if you want to reach out to Sarah directly, that's okay, Sarah?
Yeah, absolutely. I'm more than happy to have a chat with anyone.
Beautiful. Nice one. Have an amazing week.
Thank you. You too, Sam.
Cheers.